The work of the Anunnaki is very hard. But I have the solution. The being we need already exists. We just need to insert our mark on them. We need to put the Anunnaki essence. Let's create a primitive worker. Let us create Lulu, on whom the work of gods will be imposed. The Anunnaki heard Enki's words with great surprise and fascination. What mysterious being would that be? There are creatures in the Abzu, Enki continued. They walk upright on two legs and use their front legs as arms. They have hands and live among the animals of the steppes. They eat plants with their mouths and drink water from ditches and lakes. They compete for space with other creatures. They don't know how to dress and their bodies are covered in hair. Its head is as hairy as a lion's. Enlil was perplexed. He said, "No creature like this has ever been seen in Eden." Ninmah spoke. Long ago on the planet Nibiru our forefathers might have been like that. It is a being, not a creature. It must be thrilling to behold. Enki proposed that everyone who came to meet them at the House of Life. He had already captured several of these beings. Caged, upon seeing the Anunnaki the beings stirred. They pounded on the cage, snarled and puffed. Males and females could be seen. "They are like us," Enki said. "We come from Nibiru, male and female. And so these beings are too." Ninjishsuda, my son, tested the essence of creation. It's similar to ours. They have two serpents intertwined. When our vital essence combines with theirs, our imprint will be on them. Thus, a primitive worker will be created. They will understand our orders and handle our tools. They will do the hard work of digging. The Anunnaki will have relief. Enlil took his stand. Tools are our slaves, not other beings. Slavery was abolished on Nibiru long ago. We can't do this here. You want to create a creature and bring into existence what never was. Creation is in the hands of the Father of all. Enki replied, "They want to be slaves. They will be helpers. This is my plan." Ninmah spoke, "The being already exists. The plan is to give this being more capacity than it has." Enki completed, "It will not be a new creature. Let's make more of our existing image. With small changes this will already be done. Only a drop of our essence is needed." Enlil spoke, "This is a serious matter, and I don't like it. It goes against the rules of planetary travel. This has already been banned. Our object is to obtain gold, not to replace the Father of all." Ninmah answered, "My brother. With wisdom and understanding the Father of all has endowed us. For what purpose has he perfected us if not to make the most use of it? We are filled with the vital essence of wisdom and understanding. It was the Creator of all who gave this to us, so that we would be able to put it to any use. Isn't that what we were destined for? Is this not our destiny?" Ninurta spoke to his mother Ninmah, "It was with this bestowed essence that we perfected tools, cars, and ships. We destroy mountains with the weapons of terror and heal the skies with gold." Ninjishsuda said, "Let us create new tools, with wisdom, not new beings. New tools and no slaves. We will ease the hard work of the Anunnaki. And there where our understanding takes us. This is our destiny. We cannot prevent the use of the knowledge we possess." Enlil said, "Fate surely cannot be changed. From the beginning to the end it was determined. Is it fate or luck? What brought us to this planet to dig gold out of the waters? Apparently the Anunnaki must work on the excavations. And does this negate the creation of a primitive worker? That, my fellows, is the point. The creation of the primitive worker. Is it luck or is it fate?" With great doubts, the Anunnaki on Earth decided to consult Anu on Nibiru. So a new council was held and the elders, sages, and commanders were consulted once more. The discussion was broad and involved everyone. But the priority of Nibiru's salvation was paramount. Anu then conveyed to the Anunnaki on Earth the royal decision. Let Nibiru be saved. May the new being be created. Enki asked Ninmah to be his helper. And Ennugi, the chief officer, warned the Anunnaki in the Abzu that work must go on until the new being is created. Meanwhile, Enki led Ninmah to a place of cages among the trees. In the cages, monstrous creatures were trapped. As they watched the hideous one, Enki explained that the essences of lives were mixed, and that creatures of different species were crossed by manipulation. Enki and Ninmah returned to the House of Life, where Ninjishida explained the secrets of the life essence and how the combination of different essences should be accomplished. Ninmah said, "But the creatures of the cages are strange and monstrous." "Indeed they are," replied Enki. "But you are here for just that. Get perfection." Many questions stood before Ninmah. How many essences to gather? Which uterus should give birth? Ninmah reflected and concluded. A smile appeared on her lips. It was necessary the knowledge that someone who had already given birth, and this she had. Then she studied, together with Ninjishida, the sacred formulas in objects encoded with science and civilization, known as ME. Finally, she turned to the cages of monstrous creatures and understood that essences are transmitted through the insemination of a male and a female. The two intertwined strands separate and combine to create an offspring. Ninmah understood thus what was needed. Let an Anunnaki male impregnate a bipedal female. Enki said, "We tried, but it failed. There was no conception." Ninmah said, "Another way is needed to blend the essences. We must not harm the earth. Our essence must be received gradually and little by little through the secret formulas in the ME." Thus, a crystal vessel was used and an ovule of a biped was fertilized by a seed with the essence of the Anunnaki. The egg was inserted into a bipedal female. The insemination was done, but there was no birth. Ninmah made a small cut and withdrew the hybrid just in time. It was a living being. His body was covered with hair. The upper part was like that of earth creatures. The lower part was like the Anunnaki. They handed him over to his mother, the bipedal female, to take care of him and breastfeed him. The creature grew fast, and faster than expected. A day on Nibiru was like a month on the Abzu. The Earth Boy no longer made grunts, but his hands didn't adapt to tools. Ninmah spoke, "We must try again. The blend must be adjusted. Let me experiment with the MIS, the object formulas encoded with the sciences." Enki and Ninjishida repeated the proceedings. Ninmah, in possession of the Anunnaki essence in the ME, took a little of one of them, took a little of the other and inseminated in the crystal vessel together with the egg of an earthly female. There was birth at the right time, and the newborn was allowed to become a child in its mother's arms. He looked more like the Anunnaki. Its appearance was more attractive. His hands seemed configured to hold tools. So they tested the senses, but the new Earth boy could not hear and his eyesight was failing. So Ninmah returned to work and tested new blends. Several inseminations were made and several problems occurred. One of the beings had paralyzed feet. Another had a problem with his reproductive organs. Another had undeveloped lungs. Enki was disappointed. But Ninmah still yielded trials, for her heart was set to succeed. Enki stopped the attempts to say, "The problem is possibly not in the mixture, nor in the ovum, nor in the essence. We are using a crystal from Nibiru. Let us use a vessel of the material of the earth, with gold and copper." So Ninmah used the clay of the Abzu to make a vessel and mold it into a cleansing bath. Then she carefully mixed the egg of an earth female with the vital essence extracted from the blood of an Anunnaki. Then she directed the essence with the ME formulas, little by little. And then inserted the fertilized egg into the earth female's uterus. There was conception. It would be enough to wait for the foreseen time. And just in time the female went into labor and a boy slowly emerged. A newborn child was extracted by Ninmah, who gazed intently upon her image. It was the image of perfection. With her hands Ninmah held the newborn child. Enki and Ninjishsuda watched the moment. The three celebrated. Enki said, "Your hands have made it." Then they gave the baby to its earthly mother and let her breastfeed. Month by month the baby became a boy. He was huffing and puffing, unable to speak. But its limbs were fit for work. Enki pondered the matter and analyzed all possibilities. Then he said, "Of all that we have tried and exchanged, there is one thing that has never changed. The fertilized uterus was always that of a terrestrial woman. Possibly this is the only obstruction that still prevents the complete success." Ninmah and Ninjishsuda looked each other suspiciously. Enki went on. "The only alternative we haven't tried yet is an Anunnaki womb. In order for the being to be created in our image and likeness, we need it to develop into an Anunnaki." "Wise words," said Ninmah. "Possibly the correct mixture was inserted into the wrong uterus. But who will be the Anunnaki female who will receive the insemination to create the primitive worker? Couldn't there be a monster in her womb?" Enki said, "Let me speak to Damkina, my wife, also known as Ninki." "No," interrupted Ninmah. "I have been studying the matter carefully. I've prepared the vessels and mixtures. Let this womb be mine. Let me take that risk." Enki offered his assent and in a clay vessel manipulated the mixture. Then he inserted the fertilized egg into Ninmah's womb and conception took place. Labor began earlier than Nibiru's 9 months, later than Earth's 9 months. Enki supported the boy with his hands. It was the image of perfection. He gave a little slap and the newborn cried. He gave the baby into Ninmah's hands. She lifted him up and said, "My hands made it. My hands made it." Then Ninmah drew the baby to her bosom and gave the food of life that flowed from her body. The baby was nourished and observed. Enki saw a mother and her child. It was not Ninmah and any other being. The newborn had ears in good shape, eyes unobstructed, limbs adequate, feet on bottom, hands on top. He wasn't hairy like the savages, his hair was dark black, his skin was smooth. His skin was dark red, his blood had the same color. His private parts were different from the private parts of the Anunnaki. The shape was strange, there was fur covering the front part. Enki said, "Let him be different from us by this front skin hanging from his private parts." Then he continued, "Ninma, this is a being, not a creature. Will you name it?" Ninma spoke, "His name shall be Adamu, and it means like the clay of the earth." A cradle was made for the little Adamu. The Anunnaki talked in the House of Life. Now we need an army of primitive workers. And this must be the model. He must be treated like a firstborn, and he must be protected from work. It must be just the model. Your essence will be the mold. And so Ninma suggested that the caretakers of her city, Shurabak, be taken to the House of Life, to receive the next inseminations. 7 Anunnaki accepted the activity. Enki glorified their names and Ninjishsuda recorded them to be remembered. Ninima, Shuziana, Ninmada, Ninbara, Ninmug, Muzadu, and Ninguna. Ninma prepared the 7 clay vessels. She extracted the eggs from the female bipeds. She extracted the life essence of Adamu and placed it little by little in the containers. Then, through a small incision in the intimate parts, she extracted a drop of blood from Adamu, and then, she pronounced, "Let this be a sign of life. Let us always proclaim that flesh and soul have combined." Then she squeezed the male private parts to make them bleed and added a drop of blood to each container. In the clay mixture, terrestrial and Anunnaki will unite. An incantation was spoken by Ninma, for the unity of the 2 essences, one from heaven, one from earth, to be brought together. The essence of earth and Nibiru will unite by blood kinship. Ninjishsuda recorded Ninma's words. Fertilized eggs were inserted into the wombs of Anunnaki females. There was conception. The births were on schedule and 7 earth males were brought to life and fed by their mothers. They were 7 perfect primitive workers. Let the procedure be repeated and 7 more primitive workers take over the work, said Ninjishsuda. Enki spoke, "My son, 7 by 7 will not suffice. We need more Anunnaki heroines for the job." Ninma said, "This is unbearable work. We must make females," Enki said. "Let them know each other, let the 2 become one flesh, and let them procreate by themselves so that they may make their own offspring." Ninjishsuda must change the ME essence formulas to adjust from male to female. And an Anunnaki womb, to create the female, will be needed. Ninma, Enki and Ninjishsuda looked at each other. Enki uttered, "Let me call by Ninki, my wife, Damkina, so that this time she will give birth." At the House of Life, Ninki became aware of everything that had been done and what her role was in all of this. And assenting to what she should do, Ninjishsuda adjusted the ME formulas, fertilized an ovum, and Enki inserted it into his wife's womb. There was conception, but in the correct time there was no birth. The months were counted and it was decided that Ninma would perform a procedure. He made a small incision and deftly made the opening. The face lit up and what was in the womb came out. Everyone got emotional. It was a female, a newborn, a girl. Its ears were well shaped, its limbs were proper, it had hands and feet. It wasn't hairy, it had smooth skin like that of the Anunnaki. Ninmah held the girl in her hands, patted her lightly to make her cry, and gave her to Enki to feed. Enki said, "It is a being, not a creature. It is our image and likeness. Perfection is created. You have generated the model for female workers. What will your name be?" Enki, with tenderness and emotion, spoke, "Tiamat will be its name. It means the mother of life. It will be named after the ancient planet from which both the earth and the moon were made. Of the vital essences of her womb others will be molded and illuminated. Thus a multitude of primitive workers will be created." After some time Ninmah extracted the vital essence of Tiamat, and inserted it into 7 vessels made from the clay of the Abzu where the eggs of the biped females were already. Then she uttered incantations and inserted them into the Anunnaki wombs. In time, 7 females were born. Enki said, "Let the males and females know each other, and let them give birth to diverse primitive workers. Let them procreate by themselves, and the offspring will give birth to new offspring. May they grow together, may they become male and female." So Enki, Ninmah, Ninjishzida, and Ninki celebrated and built cages, placing them caged among the trees. Enki went on, "May Adamu and Tiamat be a way of work. May they be sent to the Eden to show our success to the rest of the Anunnaki." Adamu and Tiamat were directed to Eridu, the city of Enki in the Eden. So the Anunnaki came to see them. Enlil was satisfied with what he saw and his displeasure was eased. Ninurta and Ninlil also knew them. Marduk, son of Enki, came from the station of Lamu to meet them. It was a beautiful, beautiful, amazing creation. "Your hands made it," the Anunnaki told the creators. "With the primitive workers our days of toil will come to an end," they all said. But not everything went as expected. In the Abzu beings grew, but maturity took a while to happen. Enujai questioned Enki about the primitive workers who were slow to grow and proliferate. The Anunnaki complained about the work. Ninjishzida created an observation post. "You can see males and females mate, but there was no conception or birth." Enki said that a curse was created by combining 2 species. Ninjishzida pondered and proposed that the essences of Adamu and Tiamat be better observed. "Let's study the ME matrices to see what could be wrong." In Shurabak, in the House of Healing, essences were contemplated. 22 branches on the Tree of Life were there. The parts were comparable, determined images and likenesses, but did not include the ability to procreate. There was another essence present in the Anunnaki, as Ninjishzida showed. One for the male, one for the female, and without this essence there was no procreation. It was in the beginning in the mold of Adamu and Tiamat that they were not present. Ninmah was worried and Enki was deeply frustrated. But an action was needed. The information was that a new rebellion was being organized by the Anunnaki of the Abzu. Ninjishzida, an expert in these matters, had an idea. And he shut himself up alone with Enki, Ninmah, Adamu, and Tiamat. And there in the House of Healing at Shurabak a deep sleep caused Enki and Ninmah to descend. Then he began the proceedings. From Enki's rib he extracted the life essence. Into Adamu's rib he inserted the essence extracted from Enki. And into Tiamat's rib he inserted the life essence extracted from Ninmah's rib. Then, after suturing the incisions, Ninjishida woke up all of them and announced, "It's done. I added the tree of life, the vital essences of the Anunnaki." Thus Adamu and Tiamat were sent to the Garden of Eden and freed. Both male and female became aware of their nakedness, and Tiamat covered up their private parts so that they would be distinct from wild animals. Enlil, meanwhile, was walking through the garden when he came across Adamu and Tiamat. Frightened by the covered private parts, he summoned Enki to question him. "What is this? Why are their private parts covered?" Enki admitted to Enlil the importance of procreation for them and that the initial creations failed in this activity. Enki explained that Ninjishida repaired the trees of life. Enlil was furious. He said, "None of this was my will. We shouldn't act like creators. You said that the being we needed already existed. You said we just needed to put our brand on it. You put the Anunnaki at risk. You put Ninma and Ninki in danger. You put the caretakers at the House of Healing in danger. And it was all in vain. Your work is a failure." And so, the last act was to offer these creatures parts of our essence of life, that they might be like us in the knowledge of procreation and bestow upon them our life cycles. Enki called Ninma and Ninjishida. Ninjishida spoke, "My lord Enlil. We gave them the knowledge of procreation. The long life branch has not been added to their core tree." Ninma said, "What choice did we have, my brother? That it all ended in failure? That Nibiru's fate in destruction be found? Or that we make several attempts until earthlings take over the work through procreation?" Out of Eden, Adamu and Tiamat are expelled from the Eden and go to the Abzu. Enlil was furious. Nothing that had happened was to his desire. Expelling Adamu and Tiamat from Eden was a simple yet symbolic act. Enlil had shown all his displeasure with the creation of a new being. Enki led Adamu and Tiamat to a garden with trees and allowed them to know each other. Thus, the miracle that Ninjishida had worked on became evident. The couple had twins, a boy and a girl. Ninma also observed the creation. The speed of events on Earth was greater than on Nibiru. Before a Shah had passed, the newborn beings were already proliferating. That's how Adamu and Tiamat had other sons and daughters, and they started to procreate by themselves, increasing the terrestrial population considerably. In the Abzu, the Anunnaki were freed from work. Primitive workers did not complain about the work, the heat, or the dust, and they did not grumble. They worked hard and enjoyed their rations of food. Gold was being sent to Nibiru, and the hole in the atmosphere was showing considerable signs of improvement. Mission Earth progressed successfully. Among the Anunnaki, there was also marriage and procreation. The sons of Enki and Enlil also had sons and daughters. Although the life cycles originated from Nibiru, on Earth time accelerated, and the children of the Anunnaki grew more quickly. Nanna and Ningal had twins and named them Inanna and Utu. Then, the third generation of Earthborn Anunnaki had begun. New tasks mingled with old ones, and all of them were divided among the Anunnaki. Everything had changed. The heat over the earth increased, the white snow zones merged with the water, vegetation flourished, and wild creatures roamed the land. The rains were stronger, the rivers emanated, and it was necessary to repair the houses. The shores of the seas no longer had oceans. Volcanoes spewed fire and brimstone. The ground shuddered, and the earth shook at every moment. In the underworld, the place of the white color of snow, the earth grumbled. At the tip of the Abzu, Enki established a place of observation and entrusted the world to his son Nergal and his wife Ereshkigal. On Nibiruki, Enlil watched the heavenly bodies in the Heaven-Earth link and compared their movements with the Emi tablets. "There is a disturbance in the heavens," Enlil said. On Lamu, at the intermediary station, Marduk complained to Enki, his father. "Strong winds are disruptive and raise irritating storms of dust. In the hammered bracelet, there are inconveniences." On Earth, sulfur fell from the sky. Asteroids approached Earth with violence. Flaming fires blazed in the heavens. Darkness was brought to bright days, and the ravages of storms and evil winds were visible. Stony missiles attacked Earth. Kingu, Lamu, and Earth faced an unknown calamity. On Nibiru, the sages spoke, but their words did not ease the hearts of their leaders. All that was happening in the heavens, in the family of the sun, the celestials, of which Earth was the seventh, was that they were choosing their places. Nibiru approached the abode of the sun. It had lost its way through the hammered bracelet. Then a new celestial battle would begin. At last, Nibiru returned to its far abode in the depths, and the stony missiles ceased to rain upon Earth and Lamu. At this time, the first landing had already counted 80 shars, 288,000 years. Some Anunnaki took over the inspection of what had happened. Then Enki sounded the Earth's foundations and concluded that there would be no problem with the extraction of the vital gold. Ninurta checked the Edin and found that the landing place was intact and that in the valleys of the north, burning liquids had spilled. In addition, he discovered sulfuric mists and bitumen. Marduk, on Lamu, found the atmosphere damaged and dust storms interfering with the quality of life and work. Marduk told his father Enki that he wanted to return to Earth. Enlil, in his turn, reverted to his old plans and reconsidered the cities he had planned before. He said that the intermediary station on Lamu was no longer secure and that a place for ships had to be built on Edin. "A place is needed so that we can get from Nibiru to Earth and back without an intermediary station," he said. But Ninurta spoke for a different idea. He said that Bad Tabira, the city for which he was the commander, was the most recommended for the new takeoff place for the ships. Enlil conveyed the ideas to Anu, and it was established that the new place of departure and landing would be in the Edin. Thus, gold would be taken from Earth to Nibiru, and from Nibiru, supplies and more Anunnaki would arrive to work. Enki praised the plan but told his father there was a disadvantage. He said that Earth's atmosphere was more attractive than Lamu's and that to overcome this, the energies of the ships would be exhausted. Enki advocated an alternative idea, the construction of an intermediate base on the moon. And to ascertain this possibility, Enki offered his and Marduk's services. Anu agreed to survey the moon before building a station on Edin. Enki cheered, the moon had always fascinated him. For several nights, he had watched its cold silver disk and considered the moon an amazing celestial body. So Enki and Marduk went to Kingu. They circled the moon, observing its craters and holes, huge wounds caused by celestial battles. Upon landing on the moon, they found that it was impossible to breathe without their eagle helmets, so they kept them on. Observing the conditions, Marduk declared that the place did not resemble Lamu and was not suitable for constructing an intermediary station. Enki spoke up, "Do not be hasty, my son. Don't you see the dance in which the sun, moon, and earth take part? Let's stay here to study and analyze. With our instruments, we can measure and appreciate the handiwork of the Creator of all." Marduk was persuaded by his father's words. Enki and Marduk made the ship their abode, and there they remained. For 1 Earth year, for 3 years. They measured movements across the Earth and calculated the duration of a month. During 6 Earth years, during 12 years around the Sun, they measured the Earth year. They recorded how the two interconnected, making the lights disappear. They turned their attention to the paths of Mummu and Lahamu. Enki explained to Marduk that, together with the Earth and the Moon, Lamu constituted the second region of the Sun. 6 were the celestials of the lower waters, and 6 were the celestials of the upper waters that lay beyond the hammered bracelet: Anshar and Kishar, Anu and Nudimad, Gaga and Nibiru. There were 12 in total. 12 was the Sun and its family. Marduk asked his father about the recent events. Why were there 7 celestials in a row? Enki considered the turns around the Sun and the great turn around it. He considered the positions of the Earth and Moon and the movements of Nibiru so as not to descend to the Sun. He called the return the path of Anu. And from the deep, father and son watched the stars. Enki was fascinated by their groupings. He drew the images of 12 constellations from horizon to horizon. And he did so on the ways to and from, naming the top row of the path of Anu the path of Enlil, and likewise designing the path that would bear his name. There were 36 constellations of stars located in the 3 paths. He decided that it would be designated in this way, in the position of the Earth when traveling around the Sun. Enki pointed out to Marduk the beginning of the cycle, the measurement of celestial time. He said, "When I arrived on Earth, I named the time leading to the end Pisces. The one who follows my name, the one of the waters, I called it." Marduk said, "Your wisdom is fascinating, my father. But on Earth and Nibiru, government and knowledge are separate." "My son," said Enki, "what are you talking about? What are you missing? I have given you all knowledge." Marduk, in agony, said, "My father, when the Primeval workers were created, you called not my mother, but Ninmah, who is the mother of Ninurta. And then they called for Ninjishsuda, who is younger than I am. Your wisdom about life and death was shared with them, not me." Enki interjected, "My son, you were given the command of the Ijiji on Lamu. There, you are the leader." "Father," said Marduk, "you are the firstborn of Anu and not Enlil. However, he is the legal heir. This place should be yours. You were the first to land and founded Eridu. But Eridu is in Enlil's dominion, and your command is delegated to the distant Abzu. And as for me, I am your firstborn, born of your lawful wife, on Nibiru. But now, gold gathers in the city of Ninurta. Nibiru's survival is in your hands, not mine. Upon returning to Earth, what will my job be?" Am I doomed? Will fame and royalty be my future? Or will I be humiliated again? Enki embraced his son on the desolate moon and promised him, what I was deprived of, your future will come. My time will be adjacent to yours. After this conversation, new calculations and exchanges of ideas emerged. Enlil, on Earth, was scared. He had informed Anu of his concern. Meanwhile, Enki and Marduk spent countless years on the moon, and there was no sign of their return. What were they up to? Their actions are a mystery, and it is not known what they planned to do, said Enlil. At this time, the situation was worrying. On Lamu, the Igigi were anxious and agitated. Marduk had moved away, and the intermediary station had been affected by the storms of dust, without a damage assessment. Everyone was waiting for a solution. Enlil insisted on the need to build the spaceport in the Edin, and Ninurta with the construction in Bad Tabira. Then Anu uttered his holy decision. Enki and Marduk will return from the moon. We will hear their words about their findings, and then a decision will be made. The news was that the moon was not suitable, and Anu decided that the new spaceport should be built. Enki spoke, let Marduk be the commander then. The Igigi no longer need his command. Let Marduk guard the entrance of heaven. This task is reserved for Ninurta, Enlil said in anger. Anu thought. He observed that their sons were affected by rivalries. Then he decided, neither Enlil nor Enki, nor Ninurta or Marduk. Responsibility for the spaceport will be held by the third generation of Anunnaki. Utu will be the commander. Let the place be called the Bird City, and Sitpar shall be its name. Enlil began preparations for setting up the spaceport. He observed Nibruki and endowed the new place with an equal circle. Command was assigned to Utu, the grandson of Enlil, as determined by Anu, the king of Nibiru. Thus, a new era began. Anu was present for the inauguration, as were the Igigi of Lamu and the Anunnaki from all places. Inanna performed with singing and dancing. It was a big celebration. The gold was piled high, the delivery would be large, and the direct supply of golden salvation was on its way. The end of the hard work was getting closer. Anu announced that the work on Earth might slow down and that some Anunnaki might return to Nibiru. A few more shars of work and soon they'll be home, he said. Marduk did not return to Lamu, nor did he accompany his father to Edin. He wanted to know all lands in his celestial ship. Then Utu was assigned to command the Igigi, some on Earth and some on Lamu. Everyone worked with enthusiasm. It was the final effort for a quick return. However, in the Abzu, the Anunnaki did not work as intently. They said that Earthlings were proliferating and could replace them in activities. The news swept the premises across the lands, and quickly the Anunnaki of the Edin demanded primitive workers. There were 40 shars in which there was relief from the work in the Abzu, and in the Edin there was no rest. While Enki and Enlil argued, Ninurta made his decision alone and mounted an armed expedition to the Abzu. In the woods, he captured some Earthlings and took them to the Edin. Enki was angry, and Enlil was enraged. You revoked my decision to banish Adamu and Tiamat from the Edin, Enlil said to Ninurta. I am preventing new rebellions, Ninurta defended himself. In the Edin, the Anunnaki watched with admiration the work of Earthlings. They were endowed with intelligence and strength and took charge of all kinds of tasks. Males and females, however, had a constant relationship and proliferated without stopping. The Anunnaki were not satisfied with food, and in those days there were no grains and no sheep. Enlil was furious. Enki said, may you seek salvation, may you find a solution. Enki was pleased with the proliferation of terrestrial beings and worried at the same time. The Anunnaki fled from work, and little by little, the Earthlings became servants. For 7 Shahs, the Anunnaki accommodated. For 3 Shahs, there was a lack of fish and food. Anunnaki and Earthlings were starving. Enki, in his heart, planned a civilized humanity. He carefully studied and analyzed the new beings, in rivers and woods, at work, during copulation, and at rest. Enki shared with Isimud, his vizier, all his observations. Until one day, Enki was sailing in a boat and saw 2 beautiful young women of wild beauty. Isimud encouraged him, kiss them and meet them. Enki offered the ladies fruits and berries from the field, and then he kissed them, met them, and poured his vital fluid into their wombs. Isimud undertook to observe whether the 2 would become pregnant, and the answer was affirmative. Enki said to Isimud, "Let no one know what happened." By the 93rd Shah begotten by Enki, the 2 were born in the Edin, fed by their mothers, and then brought to Enki's house. Isimud said that the 2 were found among the reeds, and Enki's secrets were secure. Ninki took the 2 with affection and raised them as her children. The boy was called Adapa, and the girl was called Tai Tai. Ninki taught Tai Tai many things. Enki taught Adapa everything that was possible. Enki entrusted all his joy to Isimud. He said, "I created civilized mankind. I created civilized mankind. They will tame sheep and grow seeds." Enki sent the words to his brother Enlil. He said that a new type of being had appeared in the middle of the desert. Enlil personally went from Nibruki to Eridu. Enki explained that they were quick to learn and could teach knowledge and crafts. Bring from Nibiru the seeds for them to sow, bring from Nibiru the sheep to divide the earth. Let us teach the new class of Earthlings agriculture and herding. The Anunnaki and Earthlings will sit together at the same table. Enlil was amazed. In fact, it was incredible. He inquired Isimud to confirm, "Did you really find them among the reeds?" Enlil shook his head and pondered everything with fear and amazement. He decided to send the news to Anu. Anu was astonished. It was not new that one species led to another, but he had never heard of anything like this, and that civilized man appeared on Earth so quickly directly from Adamu. Anu pondered that for sowing and herding, large numbers would be needed. Would they be able to proliferate? While the sages of Nibiru pondered the matter, in Eridu, Adapa and Tai Tai knew each other. There was conception and birth. Tai Tai gave birth to 2 brothers. They were twins. Anu heard the news, and he sent the seeds and the sheep to be grown on Earth. And so he determined, Tai Tai should remain in Eridu to feed and take care of the newborns. And let Adapa the earthly be brought to Nibiru. Enlil was not pleased with his father's decision. Who could have thought of such a decision? What would happen when Adapa was taken to Nibiru? He would travel between the sky and the stars and would be endowed with this knowledge. Then in Nibiru, he would drink from the waters and eat the food of long life. And then he would become like the Anunnaki. Enki was scared. His face turned dark after Anu's decision. He agreed with Enlil. Who could expect a decision like this? Ninmah was with them. She said, "The sovereignty of our father Anu cannot be avoided. Enki spoke up, let's send our young ones to accompany him and see Nibiru with their own eyes. Let Ninjishida and Dumuzi be with Adapa to calm and guide him. Ninma agreed, they are our children born on Earth. Our generation is forgetting the cycles of Nibiru, its cycles now follow the Earth. Let Enki's 2 unmarried sons travel to Nibiru. They may find brides there. Thus, a celestial chamber arrived from Nibiru in Sitpar. Ilabrat, a vizier of Anu, came out of the ship. I have come to fetch the earthling Adapa, he said. Adapa was called, as well as Taitai and the young Kaayan and Abail. Ilabrat said, it's amazing how much the earthlings resemble us. They certainly have our image and likeness. Enki introduced his sons, Ninjishida and Dumuzi, and told Ilabrat that he had selected them to accompany Adapa. Anu will be happy to see his grandchildren, said Ilabrat. Enki called Adapa and gave him instructions. He said, Adapa, you will be taken to Nibiru, the planet where we come from. And there you will be received by Anu, our king. In front of him, bow down. Speak only what is necessary and everything you are asked. Offer brief answers. You will receive new clothes and should wear what is given to you. You will be offered bread that is not found on earth. Do not eat it, it is deadly. You will be offered a chalice with a drink. The drink is deadly, do not drink it. My children Ninjishida and Dumuzi will accompany you. Obey their words and you will live. Then Enki called his sons and offered them instructions as well. You will be received by the king, my father, and should bow down before him. Do not hide from the nobles and princes. You are equal to them. Your mission is to bring Adapa back to earth. Do not allow yourselves to be enchanted by the delights of Nibiru. After greeting his sons, Enki offered Ninjishida a secret and sealed tablet. He said, deliver it to my father, Anu, the king, in secret. Then the 3 headed to Sitpar, to the place of the ships and greeted Ilabrat, entering the ship that soon departed. Dressed in an eagle helmet, Adapa cowered and screamed in fear. He said, the armless eagle is rising. Ninjishida and Dumuzi calmed him down. And then the earth hid in the immense emptiness of the cosmic ocean and Nibiru appeared in front of it. Upon arrival, they were received with great curiosity. The Anunnaki born on earth and a being from another world had arrived. In the palace, the nobles formed groups and in the throne room, princes and counselors were gathered. Ilabrat burst into the hall, followed by Adapa and Enki's 2 sons. They bowed before Anu. Anu greeted his grandchildren, moved and with tears in his eyes, he kissed them. Then Dumuzi sat to his right, Ninjishida to his left. And then Adapa was introduced to Anu by Ilabrat. Do you understand what we are saying? Asked Anu. Ilabrat replied. Certainly, Enki taught him. Come here, said Anu. What is your name and occupation? Adapa stood before the king and bowed down. My name is Adapa, servant of Lord Enki. His words caused great astonishment. Anu said, wonder of wonders achieved on earth. The princes and nobles of the royal hall accompanied him. Let us celebrate then, concluded Anu. Everyone headed to the banquet hall. Tables filled with bread and drink. But Adapa did not accept anything offered to him. Anu said, why did you bring this uneducated earthling here to offer him celestial secrets? Anu turned to Adapa, why do you reject our hospitality? Why do you not eat or drink? Adapa said, my teacher, Lord Enki, said, do not eat or drink anything. How strange, said Anu. It was then that Ninjishida approached and handed Anu the secret tablet, saying, the answer may be found here. Anu was confused and worried, so he retreated to his private chamber to open the sealed tablet. He inserted the tablet into the explorer, and the message was revealed, Adapa was born from my seed with an earthly woman. Similarly, Taitai was conceived by my seed with another earthly woman. They are endowed with wisdom and speech, but not with the long life of Nibiru. He must not eat the bread or drink the drink. Adapa must return to earth, and his fate must be to live and die there. His descendants will plant and shepherd, and from this will come satiety. Anu was surprised. He did not know whether to laugh or be angry. He called his vizier, Ilabrat, and showed him the message, asking about the rules and what the king should do. Ilabrat explained, "Our rules allow for concubines, but there is no clarification regarding interplanetary relations." Ninjishzada was called to Anu's chamber. "Did you know the content of your father's secret message?" Anu asked. Ninjishzada lowered his head in response, and said, "I did not know, but I can guess. I tested Adapa's life essence, and it corresponds to the seed of my father, Enki." Anu confirmed that the message was true and ordered Adapa to return to Earth immediately. "Ninjishzada, you must accompany him," said Anu. "You shall be a teacher of civilized humanity, alongside your father, Enki." Anu returned to the hall where the celebrations were taking place and announced, "The welcome shall not be extended. The Earthling shall not eat or drink on our planet. We have already witnessed his amazing abilities. Now let him return to Earth and generate descendants." To ensure his safety, Ninjishzada accompanied Adapa and returned with him, carrying the seeds of Nibiru's cereal crops. Dumuzi remained for 1 Shah, and upon his return, he brought the sheep and the essences of the sheep with him. Everyone heard the king's words. And so, Adapa and Ninjishzada were led to the location of the celestial ships. During the journey, Ninjishzada explained to Adapa about the gods, the planets, and the names that were offered. He taught him about the months and how the Earth's year was counted. Upon arriving on Earth, Enki awaited them. He told Ninjishzada that everything had happened as expected, except for Dumuzi's stay on Nibiru. Enlil became suspicious of their immediate return and asked for clarification. Ninmah was also called to talk with Enki. That was when Enki revealed to them what had actually happened and the true origin of Adapa. However, he made it clear that he had not broken any rules, but rather ensured satiety. Enlil became enraged. "You did not break any rules, but you have cast the fate of the Anunnaki and the Earthlings." It was then that Marduk arrived in Eridu, called by his mother, Ninki. Enki and Ninjishzada decided to hide the truth from Marduk. Marduk was impressed with Adapa and Taitai and soon became attached to the twins, Kain and Abail. "Ninjishzada will instruct Adapa, let me be the teacher of the boys," said Marduk. Enlil said, "Let Marduk teach one of them and let Ninurta teach the other." So Ninjishzada stayed in Eridu to teach Adapa and Taitai. He taught them the sciences of writing and numbers. Ninurta took the first of the twins born to Bad Tabira. It was Ninurta who named him Kain, the one who makes crops grow in the field. He taught him to dig irrigation canals, sow, harvest, and plow the land with wooden trees. Marduk took the other brother, whom he called Abail, the one of the wet meadows. Marduk taught him how to build stables to start herding when Dumuzi returned from Nibiru. Thus, Dumuzi brought quadruped animals and the essential seed of sheep from Nibiru. His arrival was a cause for celebration. The leaders gathered to reflect on how to proceed with the new species. Never before had there been a sheep on Earth. Never had a lamb descended from the heavens. Never had a goat given birth to a kid. Never had sheepwool been woven. Enki and Enlil, Ninmah, and Ninjishzada decided to establish a breeding chamber, a house of elaboration. And in the Cedar Mountains, on the landing place mountain, near where Ninmah's elixir seeds were planted, they established the creation chamber. It was there that the multiplication of cereals and sheep on Earth began. Ninurta was Kain's mentor for sowing and harvesting. Marduk was Abail's mentor for the science of sheep and lamb breeding and herding. Enlil announced, "When the first harvest is made, when the first sheep matures, we will gather in celebration." Guided by Ninurta, Kain placed his offering with the first grains at Enki and Enlil's feet. Guided by Marduk, Abail placed his offering with the first sheep at Enki and Enlil's feet. Enlil gave the brothers a joyful blessing and praised their work. Enki hugged Marduk and raised the lamb so that everyone could see it. Then he said, "Meat to eat, waterware has arrived on earth." Kain's face became dark and saddened. Enki had not given his blessing. Furthermore, a Baal claimed that he pleased the Anunnaki, gave them strength, provided wool for their clothes. Offended, Kain protested, "I fill the plains that weigh down with grain furrows with abundance. Birds in the fields and fish are plentiful in these regions. The bread of our daily life is produced by me." And so days and nights passed. When summer came, the lands dried up, and there was no rain. A Baal took the flocks to Kain's fields so they could drink water from the furrows and canals. And so, brother against brother, the argument took shape once again. Kain picked up a stone and struck a Baal's head. And he kept striking until the fluid running in his veins began to gush. That's when he trembled. Kain cried out, "My brother! My brother!" But it was too late. Kain stayed by his brother. His soul had already separated from his body. Tai, at a distance, was the first to realize that something was not right. It was a strong feeling. No one had called or warned him. Tai said to Adapa, "My heart is filled with sorrow. Something terrible has happened." Adapa and Tai left Eridu and went to the place where their sons were. They saw Kain sitting next to his brother's body. Tai screamed in agony and Adapa threw dirt over his head. They yelled at Kain, "What have you done? What have you done?" Adapa returned to Eridu and told Enki what had happened. Enki became furious and confronted Kain, saying, "Cursed! You shall be banished from Eden. You shall not live among the Anunnaki and the civilized earthlings. As for a Baal, he must be buried, and I will show you how to do it." 30 days and 30 nights passed. Adapa and Tai were still in pain. Marduk said in anger, "Kain's action must be punished with death." "Let the 7 judges gather," said Ninurta. Marduk did not agree and said, "He is not from Nibiru. He does not need the 7 judges. What nonsense is this? Is it not enough that the one trained by Ninurta has murdered the one I trained? Was it not this way that Ninurta defeated Anzu? Let Kain receive the same treatment and let his life fluid be extinguished." Ninurta was saddened by Marduk's words. Enki said, "Let me talk to Marduk." Enki spoke to his son and told him the secret that had been hidden from him. Thus, Marduk learned about the origin of Adapa and the brothers Kain and Baal. Enki explained that a new time had come and that the civilized earthlings could now procreate on their own. Therefore, Kain should not be extinguished as well. Otherwise, rebellions would return, and satiety would not be achieved. Now, Marduk, have pity on Kain and do not allow Adapa's lineage to be extinguished. At first, Marduk was furious, but then he laughed. He said, "Much had been said about your amorous feats. Now I see that it is true. Let Kain's life be spared, and let him be expelled to the limits of the earth." Thus, Kain was taken west with his wife Awan, and Ninjishsuda altered Kain's life essence so that he would be distinct from Adapa's other sons. In this way, Kain became beardless. Soon the question arose. Without Kain and a Baal, who would multiply the sheep and provide wool for clothes? And who would plough the land and make the grains grow? Let Adapa and Tai meet again, and let another generation be born, said Enki. In the 95th Shah, Adapa and Tai had a son. Tai named him Sati, meaning one who unites life again. After that, they had 30 sons and 30 daughters, so there were shepherds and farmers. Satisfaction returned to the Anunnaki and the Earthlings. In the 97th Shah, Enki was born, the son of Sati and his wife Ahura. His name, Enki, meant master of humanity. Adapa taught Enki who the Anunnaki were and what Nibiru was. He knew the cities, observed Nibruki, and all the secrets of the Anunnaki. Nanna taught Enki about perfumed oils, and Ishkur taught him to prepare the elixir of the Inbu fruits. It was from then on that civilized humans began to worship the Anunnaki, who showed and taught them everything. Enki had a son with his sister Nome. His name was Cunin, he of the kill. Ninurta was his tutor, and in Badtabira, he learned about fire, casting, refining, and bitumen. Cunin worked on refining gold for Nibiru. That was the 98th Shah. In the 99th Shah, Malalu was born, the son of Cunin and his half-sister Mualit. Malalu meant he who plays, and Ninurta taught him music, giving him a harp and a flute. From the union of Malalu and Dunna, the daughter of his father's brother, his wife, Irid was born, the one of fresh waters. Dumuzi taught him how to dig wells and provide water for the flocks. And it was by the wells in the meadows that shepherds and maidens gathered. Marriages and the proliferation of civilized humanity occurred in abundance. The Igigi came to Earth more frequently, and they wanted to stay on Earth and not on Lamu. Thus Irid met Baraka, his wife, who was the daughter of his mother's brother. On the 102nd Shah, a son was born who became known as Enkimi. Enkimi was wise and intelligent. He easily and quickly understood mathematics and had constant curiosity about the heavens and all celestial matters. Enki took a liking to him and revealed to him all the secrets he had previously revealed to Adapa. He explained about the family of the sun and the 12 celestial deities, how months were counted from the moon and years from the sun. He mentioned the Shahs in Nibiru and how calculations were made. He also demonstrated how he divided the circle of the heavens into 12 parts and how the eras were arranged, how the 12 great Anunnaki were honored in the eras. Enkimi was curious and eager to explore the heavens. He took 2 celestial journeys. In the first, Enkimi went to the moon with Marduk, who taught him everything he knew. When Enkimi returned to Earth, Utu gave him a tablet to record what he had learned. Utu offered Enkimi his shining abode like a prince of the earth. The rites of priesthood were taught to Enkimi. Later, in Sitpar, he met his wife, a half-sister named Idini. Thus, a son of Enkimi and Idini was born, and he was known as the one who rises among the shining waters. Matushal was born on the 104th Shah and witnessed the problems with the Igigi and everything Marduk was doing. After the birth of Matushal, Enkimi traveled to the heavens for the second time with Marduk to visit the Igigi on Lamu. The Igigi talked a lot and were able to learn about civilized earthlings. It is said that after ascending to the heavens, Enkimi never returned. But before leaving, he offered a written record so that his children would know everything he knew. He recorded the family of the sun, the regions of the earth, and the rivers. He entrusted Matushal, his firstborn, along with his brothers Ragim and Gaidad, with the knowledge of everything. Matushal met his wife Ednat and had a son named Lumak, a powerful man. The Anunnaki chose Lumak to be the overseer and that he should work to enforce quotas and reduce food rations. Those were the most difficult days, and the workers in the fields and meadows complained. And it was during the days of Lumak that Adapa, the first civilized man, met his mortal destiny. On his deathbed, he asked that all his children and his children's children be called. Adapa wanted to bless them and speak to them before departing. When Sati and all the others gathered, Adapa asked about Ka'in. Enki called Ninurta and said, "Let the banished one, whom you mentored, be brought to Adapa's deathbed." Ninurta flew on the bird of the sky to the land of the wanderers. He searched for Ka'in, and when he found him, he brought him to meet Adapa, his father. When Ka'in arrived, Adapa asked him and Sati to come closer. With his failing vision, Adapa touched their faces and noticed Ka'in's beardless face and Sati's bearded face. Adapa placed his right hand on Sati's head and said, "The earth will be filled with your offspring. And from your seed, like a tree with 3 branches, humanity will survive a great calamity. He placed his left hand on Cain's head and said, "Because of your sin, you are deprived of your birthright, but from your seed, 7 nations will come. They will grow in a separate kingdom and dwell in distant lands. But because you killed your brother with a stone, your end will come by a stone." After Adapa finished speaking, he dropped his hands and said, "Now, call Tai Tai, my wife, and all my sons and daughters. And when my spirit leaves me, take me to the place near the river where I was born and leave me with my face towards the rising sun." Tai Tai cried and fell to her knees beside Adapa. He was born in the middle of the 93rd Shah and passed away at the end of the 108th. It was a long life for a mortal, but he didn't have the life cycle of Enki. After Adapa's farewell ceremony, Cain said goodbye to his mother and brother. He had sons and daughters in a distant kingdom, and he built a city for them. While building it, he met his destiny, as predicted, with the fall of a stone. During Lumaka's time in Eden, he served the Anunnaki as a foreman. In those days, the Igigi saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took them as their wives. During Lumaka's time, Marduk and the Igigi married earthlings. Those were difficult days. On Lamu, dust and aridity enveloped the planet. The Igigi were restless and asked Marduk to keep the passage station in Lamu until it was possible to understand what was happening. On the Sun, eruptions were detected and shook the gravitational network of Earth and Lamu. In Abzu, in front of White Earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal were appointed to install observation instruments. The Anunnaki who decree fates, the sons of Anu who are on Earth, Enki, Enlil, and Ninmah gathered to decide. The years of Earth and the Shahs of Nibiru weighed on their eyes and their bodies. Each of their features had changed a lot, and they all noticed. Enki had a tired and old look. And he was the first to speak. "More than 100 Shahs have passed since my arrival. I was an elegant leader, and now I am a bearded, tired, and old man. And I," said Enlil, "was an enthusiastic hero willing to lead and venture. Today I have children who have children, all born on Earth. We are older, but those born on Earth will be even older in a short time." Ninmah, saddened, said she had been called an old sheep. Enlil added, "Other Anunnaki have been coming and going all this time. And we, the leaders, had to stay all the time. It may be time to leave." Enki replied, "I have wondered about this a lot. Every time one of us 3 wishes to visit Nibiru, words of hindrance come to us." Enlil added, "What is happening? Any problem on Earth or in Nibiru?" Ninmah replied, "This may have to do with differences in life cycles." The 3 of them decided to wait and see what would happen. Shortly thereafter, Marduk approached his father Enki with a matter of severe gravity. "Father, Enlil's 3 sons have married. Ninurta with Bau, daughter of Anu, Nanna married Ningal, and Ishkur married Shola. Your son Nergal has married Ereshkigal, Enlil's granddaughter, forcing consent after threatening to take her life. Nergal did not wait for his espousal, despite being his firstborn. Now, it's my turn, father. I want a wife, I want to choose a bride." Enki smiled and said, "Your words make me happy. Your mother will be too." Marduk raised his hand to interrupt such happiness. Enki asked, "Is it one of the young women who heal and give aid?" Marduk said, "She is a descendant of Adapa, a terrestrial, not from Nibiru." Enki was speechless and looked bewildered. "A prince of Nibiru, a titled firstborn for succession. marrying a terrestrial? Not just any terrestrial, but his own descendant, Marduk said. Her name is Sarpanit. Enki brought the matter to his daughter, Alalu's wife, Damkina, also known as Ninki, Lady of the Earth. Marduk explained, on one of the journeys I took with Enki to the heavens, I witnessed with my own eyes something my father had told me. Step by step, we created a being like us, here on this planet. It was when he was explaining to Enki about heaven and earth that one of his daughters captivated me. Ninki pondered her son's words. And does this young woman appreciate your gaze? She asked. Certainly, Marduk said. Enki raised his voice. This is not a matter to be considered. If our son were to do this, he could never go to Nibiru with his wife and would forever lose his rights as a prince of Nibiru. Marduk smiled bitterly. My rights over Nibiru are non-existent. Even on Earth, my rights as firstborn were trampled upon. This is my decision. From Prince of Nibiru to King of the Earth, I will be the Lord of this planet. So be it, said Ninki. So be it, said Enki. Enki then told his brothers, Enlil and Ninmah, of Marduk's decision. Both were horrified. Enlil said, it's different for the father to have relations with the earthlings and for the son to decide to marry one of them. Ninmah said, he could marry a half-sister as is the royal custom. Enlil conveyed the news to Anu on Nibiru. Anu said he could not consent. In the rulebooks, there was nothing on this matter. He called upon the advisors and the wise men. They explained that Adapa, the progenitor, could not stay on Nibiru, and so, if Adapa could not stay on Nibiru, Sarpanit, his daughter, would also be prohibited from going there. And Marduk also could not go to Nibiru. Some sages and advisors said that Marduk was accustomed to the life cycles of Earth and that even without Sarpanit, he could possibly never visit Nibiru. By mutual agreement, Anu confirmed and decided to communicate the decision to the Anunnaki on Earth. Marduk can marry, but he will no longer be a prince of Nibiru. Enki, Enlil, and Marduk agreed with the decision. Ninki said, let us celebrate the wedding. And let the party be in Eridu. I myself will prepare the celebration. Enki added, let us make a gift. Let us designate for them a domain far from Edin, in other lands. Enlil thought for a moment and asked, what land and what domains are you talking about? Enki replied, a domain above Abzu, in the land that reaches the upper sea. It is separated from Edin by the waters and can be reached by boats. Enlil consented, saying, so be it. Thus, the celebration took place in Eridu. The celebration was grand, and the number of gifts was also. To the sound of 7 tambourines, the bride's sisters presented the wife. It was a great gathering of civilized earthlings. For them, the wedding was a coronation. Young Anunnaki were also present. And the Ijiji of Lamu came in great numbers to witness the union between Nibiru and Earth. 200 Ijiji were present at the wedding celebration of the Lamu leader Marduk. But Enki and Enlil did not know the true intention of the Ijiji. The Anunnaki leaders on Earth did not know why there were so many Ijiji and what was happening. It was on Lamu, before the celebration, that a crowd gathered. Among the workers, one of the Ijiji had taken the lead and raised his voice before the others. His name was Shamgaz. And what Shamgaz did was represent what the Ijiji felt. Enough of suffering and loneliness. If the leader Marduk could, they also had the right. They wanted to have Earth's women for themselves. They wanted to marry and have children. They called the Earthlings Adapite females. Shamgaz said, come and let us choose wives among the Adapite females. Let us generate sons and daughters in them. And if there is punishment to be imposed, I alone will assume it for all of you. And even if none of you accompany me, I will take action alone. One by one, the Ijiji gathered and made an oath. And so 200 of them arrived at Marduk's wedding, descending through the landing place. They arrived at the great platform on the mountain of cedars. And from there, they traveled to Eridu with a crowd of earthlings. And it was at the end of the union celebration between Marduk and Sarpanit that, by a previously agreed signal, Shamgaz alerted everyone else. And the Igigi, each of them took an earthly maiden. And they went with them to the mountains of cedars, in the landing place. They gathered in a fortress and sent their words to the Anunnaki leaders. Enough of deprivation and not having offspring. We want to marry the Adipite women. You must bless this desire, otherwise, we will destroy everything on earth with the power of fire. The Anunnaki leaders were scared. They told Marduk that he should take care of the situation. And Marduk said, "If I have to seek a solution, my heart will be in agreement with the Igigi. I cannot forbid them what I have done myself." Enki and Ninmah reluctantly agreed. Enlil was furious. "Our pride and our sacred mission have been abandoned. By our hands, this planet will be invaded by crowds of earthlings." One wrongdoing was followed by another. Enki started it, Marduk continued it, and now they are an example for hundreds of Igigi. Enlil continued with much displeasure. "Let it not be on earth, let them be led out." Marduk spoke, "On Lamu, the situation is unbearable, and survival is not possible. This is a fact that we all know." Enlil said angrily, "They will not stay in the Eden. They cannot stay in the Eden." And after his words, he left annoyed. In his heart, Enlil plotted things against Marduk and the earthlings. And so, for some time, on the landing platform, next to the Cedars Mountains, the Igigi were isolated with the earthly women, descendants of Adapa. And soon the first children were born. They were called children of the spaceships. Likewise, Marduk and his wife Sarpanit also had children. The first two were named Asar and Sutu. And as previously agreed, Marduk and Sarpanit were granted domains above the Abzu. And to accompany them, Marduk invited the Igigi to live in 2 cities he had built for his children. Some of the Igigi accepted, others did not. Some Igigi and their children arrived in the domains of the Darkland, while Shamgaz and others stayed on the landing platform in the Cedars Mountains, and extended their domains to the lands of high mountains far to the east. Meanwhile, Marduk increased his own strength among the earthlings. And in those days, Ninurta asked his father Enlil, "What are Enki and Marduk plotting?" To which Enlil replied, "The earth will be inherited by the earthlings." And he continued, telling Ninurta, "Go and meet the descendants of Cain, and with them, prepare your own domains." Thus, Ninurta, son of Enlil, met the descendants of Cain, and with them, established a new land and a city with towers. Ninurta taught the descendants of Cain how to make tools and interpret music, showed them mining techniques, refining, and casting. He taught them to build balsa wood boats so they could cross a great sea. It was a domain beyond the seas, not the mountainous land of the new Sky-Earth link. They were the domains of Ninurta, of the Enlil clan. Those were the days of Lumak, also a descendant of Adapa. In those days, Lumak was still the overseer who reduced the rations of the earthlings in Eden. And Lumak married Batanash, the daughter of his father's brother. Enki asked Marduk, his son, to take Lumak to his domains to teach the earthlings how to build a city. And so, Marduk called Lumak to his lands. But this was an unusual request with a clear purpose. It turns out that Batanash, Lumaka's wife, was stunningly beautiful. And one of the great Anunnaki was enchanted by such beauty. Enki intended to have Batanash in his arms. And so, to protect Batanash, who was left alone in Lumaka's absence, Enki engineered her trip to Shurabak, in the city of Ninmah, the refuge city. And after this, Enki went to Shurabak to visit his sister. And Batanash was bathing when Enki found her, and having found her, he had intimacy with her. Knowing her, pregnancy soon followed, and warnings were given to Lumak to return. Thus, a boy was born. And this shocked everyone. Lumak held him in his arms and could not understand what he saw. The boy had white skin like snow, hair the color of wool, and his eyes were like the sky, bright and shining. "I'm confused," said Lumak. "He doesn't look like an earthling." Matushal, Lumaka's father, also met the boy and demanded the truth from Batanash's words. "Is he the son of one of the Igigi?" And Batanash said, "None of the Igigi is his father." Matushal calmly put his arm around Lumaka's shoulder and said, "The boy is a mystery, but a strange omen has been revealed. He is unique and has been chosen by destiny for a unique task. What that task is, I do not know, but at the appropriate time it will be known. May the son who was born, strange as he is, be an omen that rest is coming." During the days of Lumak, times were tough. The days were colder, and the skies were devoid of rain. Harvests dwindled in the fields, and there were few lambs in the pens. Batanash, the mother, did not reveal her son's secret to Matushal or Lumak. Ninmah granted the boy her support and affection. Enki adored him greatly and taught him to read Adappa's writings. The boy, still young, learned to observe and perform the priestly rituals. It was the 10th Shah, and the boy was called Zeusudra, the one with long and bright days of life. He grew up in Shurabak, and there he met Imzara, whom he married and had 3 children with. In those days, suffering on earth had intensified. Plagues and famine were being felt. Humans and Anunnaki suffered from the recent events. And in those days, the Anunnaki feared for their own safety and for everything happening on earth. Enlil was very troubled. The Igigi had organized a great rebellion for the marriage of Marduk and Sarpanit. And so, a great confusion began. Some of the Igigi remained with Shamgaz on the landing platform next to the Cedar Mountains and extended their domains to the lands of high mountains. While other Igigi accompanied Marduk to the lands above the Abzu. Children were born through the Igigi. They were hybrids generated from the union with earthly women. They occupied various lands and domains. Different Anunnaki related to the earthlings. Enlil sent his son Ninurta to lands beyond the seas, where Ninurta established a city with towers and a proximity to the descendants of Ka'in. Meanwhile, Enki engendered a son with Batanash, wife of Lumak, who more closely resembled the Anunnaki gods than humans. That was Zeusudra. And in the days of Zeusudra, plagues and pests afflicted the earth. Pains, nausea, and chills were felt. And thus Enlil destined to the earthlings the punishments and fate that only the Lord of Command could decree. In the eyes of Enlil, the mission of the Anunnaki on earth had become perverted. For him, the noisy and strident masses of earthlings had become an anathema. Enlil said that the Earthlings' declarations were oppressive and that their unions kept him awake at night. Ninmah interceded on behalf of the Earthlings, saying that it would be useful to teach them how to heal themselves so that they could medicate themselves. But Enlil did not respond positively to her pleas. In the lands where Earthlings lived and proliferated, waters did not grow in their sources, and the earth had closed its belly. It was the vegetation that did not sprout. Enki also pleaded to be able to teach fishing and sustenance from the seas, to which Enlil also prohibited by decree. And over time, hunger and diseases increased. For a complete Shah, Earthlings ate the herbs of the field, and so the second Shah also arrived. And the third. It was Enlil's revenge. Ziusudra, the spokesperson for the Earthlings, traveled to Eridu and called for Enki, his lord. He pleaded for help and salvation. But Enki was prevented from taking any action due to Enlil's decrees. In those times, even the Anunnaki feared their fate. Their own rations diminished, and the changes that occurred also affected them. Both on Earth and on Lamu, the seasons had lost their regularity. For 2 Shahs, they studied the celestial movements of Nibiru. Strange events were taking unknown paths. Something was happening around the sun and its family. Kishar had lost its host, and the sculpted bracelet was stretched and pushed by invisible forces. In Nibiru, the wise men sounded the alarm. They said that the creator of all was returning the heavens to primitive days. Some voices among the people rose to say that the Creator was angry. On earth, the tribulations increased, while fear and hunger spread. Nergal and Ereshkigal observed the instruments in front of the White Land. There were 4 Shahs of observation. They detected tremors and earthquakes. And they realized that the White Land had started to slide. The words about the fact were sent to Enlil and addressed by him to Nibiru. And so came the 5th and the 6th Shah. And there, on the planet of the Anunnaki, the wise men also observed and sounded the alarm once again. They told King Anu that the next time Nibiru approached, the earth would be exposed and the ice and snow on the surface of the White Land would slide, causing a calamity of water. The wise men said that the land would be engulfed by a gigantic wave. It was a flood approaching. In Nibiru, the consternation was great. The insecurity in the face of Nibiru's own fate was frightening. What would happen? The king, the wise men, and the counselors were concerned. In Abzu, the gold mines were closed, and the Anunnaki left for Edin. In Batabira, the smelting and refining also stopped, and all the gold that was there was hastily sent to Nibiru. Ships departed from the planet of the Anunnaki towards the Earth, preparing for a rapid evacuation. And it was in one of the ships that arrived on Earth that a white-haired Anunnaki presented himself. With majestic steps, he demonstrated a sealed message from Anu to the Lord of the Command on Earth. Enlil received the message and observed that Anu's seal was intact and authentic. Enlil was surprised. In Nibruki, he read the tablet's message and observed that the coding was entirely trustworthy. The Anunnaki who arrived was called Galzu, and spoke on behalf of the king and the council. Anu's message said, "Galzu's words are my orders." Galzu was from the same school as Ninmah, but he appeared much younger. Ninmah said she didn't remember him. Besides, she seemed like an old crone compared to him. The explanation was simple and part of his mission on Earth, Galzu revealed. The cause is the winter sleep cycles. But it's not just that. There is a secret related to evacuation. Since Dumuzi was in Nibiru, the Anunnaki who returned were examined. Their bodies were no longer accustomed to Nibiru's cycles. Their sleep was disturbed, their vision was failing, and Nibiru's network of power weighed heavily on their steps. Their minds were affected, and their children were older than their parents. It was observed that those who stayed on Earth for longer were the most affected upon returning. Death came quickly to the returned, said Galzu. And I'm here to warn you. Enki, Enlil, and Ninmah remained in a somber silence. And Ninmah was the first to speak, as expected, she said. Enki, the wise one, agreed with her words. It was evident. Enlil, however, was filled with anger. Before, the Earthlings were becoming like us, but now, we are becoming like the Earthlings. We will be trapped on this planet. The entire mission has turned into a nightmare. With Enki and his Earthlings, we will end up being their slaves. Galzu listened to everyone with compassion, including Enlil's explosive outburst. Then he said, "Indeed, there is much to reflect upon." Deep questions were raised in Nibiru. Should we have perhaps left Nibiru to its own fate? Or was the arrival on Earth conceived by the Creator of all? Perhaps we, the Anunnaki, were nothing more than unconscious emissaries of the entire mission and plan of the Creator of all? The debate on this matter, my friends, will continue. But I want to tell you the reason for my arrival and Nibiru's secret order. The three of you must stay on Earth. And you will only return to Nibiru, towards death. As you wait for the great calamity, you must encircle the Earth and wait. The Ijiji who married Earthlings must choose between leaving or staying with their marriages. No Earthling, including Sarpanit, will be allowed to travel to Nibiru. Those who wish to stay to observe their fate must protect themselves inside the celestial ships. As for everyone else, they must be prepared to depart for Nibiru immediately. In light of Galzu's words, Enlil called a meeting in Nibruki. Thus, the Anunnaki commanders, their children, and the Ijiji gathered. Enlil spoke and told them about the secret of the imminent calamity. Our mission on Earth has come to a bitter end. Those who wish to leave in celestial ships, stop for evacuation. Those who have married Earthlings will have to go without their wives. Those who wish to stay must lead their wives and descendants to the highest peaks of the Earth. And for the Anunnaki who decide to stay, they should find a place in the celestial ships that will remain outside to witness the fate of Earth. As commander, I will be the first to stay. The others, decide for yourselves. Ninurta spoke up. I will stay with my father and face the calamity. And after the flood passes, I will return to the lands beyond the oceans. Nanna, Enlil's eldest son on Earth, announced that he wished to await the flood on the moon. Enki had a strange expression on his face. Enlil, perplexed by what Nanna had said, nevertheless agreed. Ishkur declared that he would stay on Earth with Enlil. Utu and Inanna, Nanna's children, declared their desire to stay as well. Enki and Ninki proudly announced that they had chosen to stay and not abandon the Earth. Marduk angrily said, I will not abandon the Ijiji or Sarpanit. Thus, one by one, the other sons of Enki announced their decision to stay. Nergal and Jibal, Ninagal and Ninjishsada, as well as Dumuzi. So, everyone turned their attention to Ninmah, who also proudly revealed her decision to stay, announcing, "My whole life is here. The Earthlings are my creatures. I will not abandon them." Upon Ninmah's words, the Anunnaki and Igigi asked, "What will become of the Earthlings?" To which Enlil replied, "The Earthlings, with all their abominations, let them perish." Enki shouted in response, "A strange being was created by us, and we must save him." Enlil also shouted, "On every occasion, you have modified decisions. You gave procreation to the primitive workers, endowed them with knowledge. You took in your hands the powers of the Creator of all, only to soil yourself with abominations. You conceived Adapa through fornication. You gave understanding to his lineage. You raised his descendants to the heavens, sharing our wisdom with them. You broke all the rules, ignored all decisions and orders. Because of you, an earthling brother killed another. Because of your son Marduk, the Igigi imitated him and married earthling women. No one knows who is the Lord of Nibiru and to whom the earth belongs. Enough. That's all I have to say. Enough. The abomination must not continue. Let what will happen, happen. And so, let everyone take an oath, and let everyone swear not to intervene in events." Enlil, in the council of the Anunnaki and Igigi in Nibruki, demanded an oath from everyone. The first to swear the oath was Ninurta, and from Enlil's clan, everyone did so. Next, Enki's son spoke up. Nergal bowed in respect. Marduk told Enlil he agreed, but questioned what the point of the oath was. If the Igigi abandoned their wives, wouldn't fear be spread among the Earthlings? Ninmah was in tears, and whispered weakly the words of the oath. Enlil stared fixedly at Enki. "Why do you want to bind me to an oath?" Enki questioned. "The decision is yours. And on Earth, it is a command. You want to make it seem like a mere chance. Let it be known as Enlil's decision. And let the responsibility fall on Enlil. Forever." And having said these words, Enki left the assembly. Marduk went with him. Turmoil erupted, and quickly Enlil brought order with swift words of command. Next, the organization began. And as was natural, Enlil, being a skilled commander, coordinated the activities. The first to depart were those who would return to Nibiru. And it was not one or two, but several ships that left. Next was the turn of Marduk and the Igigi with their earthling wives. Marduk gave them a choice, to go with him, Sarpanit, 2 sons and daughters to Lamu, and wait there for the end of the calamity, or to disperse into the distant mountainous lands of the earth to find refuge. Enlil counted those who stayed and assigned ships to them, by groups. Then he ordered Ninurta to go to the mountainous lands beyond the oceans to report on the rumbling of the earth. Continuing on, Nergal and Ereshkigal were tasked with monitoring the White Earth. Enlil assigned his son Ishkur to watch out for any advances by the Earthlings. His mission was to prohibit access and to raise and reinforce barriers and locks. The celestial ship place, Sitpar, was the center of all preparations. It was there that Enlil established the temporary Heaven-Earth link and conducted the destiny tablets that came from Nibruki. Enlil explained to Enki that the tablets of record should be buried in the depths of the earth in Sitpar, so that in the future, what was done on one planet could one day be discovered on another. Enki approved his brother's words and stored the ME and other tablets in golden chests. And so, in the depths of the earth, they were buried in Sitpar for posterity. With everything arranged, the leaders waited for the signal to depart, and they watched with apprehension as Nibiru approached on its great return. The signs were clear. The signs in the heavens revealed that the hour was getting closer and closer. It was at this moment that Enki addressed his sister, Ninma, turning his attention to the other living creatures. He said, Enlil directed all his concern towards the earthlings, but he forgot about all the other living creatures. When the flood inundates the earth, all creatures will be condemned, including those whose seeds of life came from Nibiru. Let's preserve the seed of life. Let's extract their vital essences to protect them. I will do this in Shurabak, said Ninma, and you will do it with the living creatures of Abzu. So, while the others waited anxiously, Enki and Ninma undertook a challenging task. In Shurabak, Ninma had the assistance of some of her assistants. Enki had the help of Ninjisuda in Abzu, in the ancient House of Light. They collected the male and female essences, as well as the eggs of life. Thus, in pairs, males and females, they preserved them in both Abzu and Shurabak. And then the trumpet sounded and the alarm went off. Ninurta announced, "The thunder on earth is terrifying." From the white earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal declared, "The white earth shook." In Sitpar, in the celestial ship place, the Anunnaki gathered to wait for the flood. And it was at this moment, as the tension of the wait grew, that Enki, in his abode, fell asleep. And in a dream vision, a bright and radiant man like the sky appeared to him.
To be continued.